Hi everyone, my name's Dan Draper and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the content that I'm going to be putting out, including my podcast. Let's get into the videos. Welcome back to the Dan Draper podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Today's episode is a very, very important episode that we all need to be talking about at the minute, which is women's safety. And I can tell you that the guests that I have today are some of the most amazing women that I could have on here. And I'm a bit nervous because this is the first interview that I've done with more than one person. So let's see how this goes. So I'm very, very delighted to announce that I've got, as I said, some amazing ladies. So I've got Kate Thompson, I've got Laura Flemming, and one of my good friends, Emily Jordan Wilson. Ladies, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Kate. I'm Australian. I'm a professional dancer and also work like in the fitness world and all that kind of bits and bobs kind of life, you know, a bit here, a bit there. But yeah.
I'm Laura Flemming and I am from the Midlands, so slightly less glamorous than being from Australia, never mind. And I am a presenter and actress.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a director's rep, which basically means that I work for a big film production company and I look after film directors and get them work in advertising. It's a bit like sales, but like really fancy.
Fancy sales.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's basically lunch.
Brilliant. So ladies, first off, how are we? And thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. I mean, good. I feel like this past 2-3 weeks has been like just really overwhelming. Like I don't know about everyone else, but like I'm feeling like it's been a really, really intense past 2-3 weeks, and like, I feel like I've felt it a lot as well, especially because I don't know if you guys are the same, but being from this area as well, like this has been like, and especially like with everything Meghan and Harry going on, it's just like it's just so much. It's just so much to like catch up on as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like it's.
Oh, go on. Sorry, no, you go.
I feel like it's when you're at home and you've got time to think about it. Like everything's so much heavier and more like intense. You haven't got the distractions of someone coming in and being an idiot at work, or like it's just everything is just maxed out. You wake up and it's like heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that every time something like this happens, it like, as women, like you're always aware of this sort of thing, obviously, but then like every time something like this happens, it like heightens it again for a while, and then it's like you're like, oh god, like you question everything that you do, like going and meeting somebody, going for a walk, like you end up questioning everything then. So yeah, so it is definitely heavy at the minute.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's been a really heavy couple of weeks, and like Kate was saying, for me, I live opposite Clapham Common, so for me, this and walking around, it's just felt very heavy recently, and it's something like I said to you, and I know Laura, again, thank you for coming back on, because we did a live together talking about this, but it's just something that I wanted to tackle head on. It's something that, you know, we need to talk about, and we really need to make sure that the message is getting across. And I think, like you were saying there earlier, that this is one of those pinnacle moments that should now bring some more change. And this is where we need to have the conversations, keep the conversations flowing, because if there's more voices in it, then that's where the louder voices will be able to push through and real change can start to happen. So I wanted to kick off and just ask, and we'll go around in an order. So Kate, we'll start with you first, but just tell us about your own experiences with things like this, and, you know, not obviously what's happened in the last couple of weeks or so, but how things have been for you. Obviously, I can imagine with your industry that you're in as well, there can be certain elements where guys have been arseholes, as we know. But yeah, just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, with all this going on, like my job is tricky at times, because it's like I will either start at like I have to leave the house and get on the tube at 5 a.m, or I'm coming home at 3 p.m, and I'm like got a full face on and everything. Like it's so like I feel like I've seen like I've felt those streets a lot of the time at like all different times, and it's it's I've definitely had a few interesting experiences, like I'm sure we all have, where like, you know, it starts off with a cat call and then before you know it, they're following you with their car and stuff like that, and you're like, oh great, lovely, nice little run home. But like it was also like something that well, it's not hilarious, but I just find it so funny is when guys do it when they're in their uniform with like their logo, and you're like, okay, like sure, I'll just send a tweet out now. And but anyway, but and then I feel like these past couple of weeks have really made me think about how things I do like subconsciously, because obviously my work, like I'm, as I said, like dressed up, hair, everything done, and in like whatever outfit. But then the second I finish, I'm literally like hood on, big, like literally, I literally like the biggest clothes you could ever imagine, even if it's hot. Like I wouldn't dare walk home with my legs out, or like I've always make sure my shoes are comfortable and stuff like that. And it's just like, this has really made me realize that this is all stuff that I do without even thinking about it. Which is interesting, that I feel like kind of safe. And then the second I'm on the street, I'm like, oh God, like, you know, like anything to kind of cover myself. But yeah, like as I'm sure you guys have experienced as well, like we've had it all, haven't we? And like something that I always find really an interesting conversation that I had with an older lady, was I was like telling her how much I was hating the catcalling, but she was like, oh well, you're young, enjoy it while you're young, which is a really mind-blowing conversation to have, especially with a woman, is a really interesting conversation to have. Yeah, that's just a few of my little bits.
Yeah, and do you know what I picked up on there? And obviously, as a guy, I haven't had any of these previous experiences. But what I noticed, what you said there, is that when you're on, when you're on stage, because you've done quite a bit for some big artists, and obviously you were in Masked Singer and things like that. But when you're in those outfits that people would deem sexy, if you like, and then you come out and you feel like you're more comfortable and confident because of, you know, you got that confidence on screen as such, and when you're performing, but then to come off stage and to, like you said there, to be put in all your big baggy clothes on, and you feel more confident in that because of the way that, you know, men perceive women and stuff like that. That for me is a real shock. Like genuinely, that's kind of taken me back a little bit. I know that obviously in lockdown we've all had our comfy days. I don't think I've got out of jogging bottoms for the past year. Yeah, literally.
Same.
It's like that whole Zoom meeting where you're like business on top and then just joggers. But it's so strange for me. And as I said, I've never shared experiences like that before. I mean, Laura, can you tell us about some of your experiences previously? Because I know that we've had a couple of conversations about it before.
Yeah, like, and I totally relate with what you were just saying as well, because I used to dance, so I've totally been in that situation where when you're gigging, you come home at sort of all hours, and that's the thing, like you get off stage and you just like all of the clothes, so that like, let's just make myself invisible because I just don't. And this is something that we spoke about on the Instagram live that we did like last week, was that I used to have that mindset of like, you know, you were saying about the lady that you were speaking to who was saying like, oh, enjoy it while it lasts. This is sort of what I was talking about in the Instagram live, is that we all need to unlearn it. This isn't a case of us just saying men are awful and listen to us women because we know everything. That's like totally not what this is. It's more of a thing of like, this is a huge like societal problem that we all need to kind of unlearn, because it's been drilled into us for just like years and years. So I used to dance in sort of like a burlesque group. It's like a cheesecake burlesque group. So it was all very sort of tongue in cheek and whatever. It wasn't like full on stripping or anything, just very tongue in cheek. But we used to
cheesecake burlesque.
It's basically like,
you said that so casually.
Yeah, I know. Just assuming that people know what I mean. So like cheesecake burlesque is like burlesque. When you think burlesque, you think of like is it Dita Von T? So I feel like I've got her name wrong there. Yeah. So it's not as like she's proper like full on burlesque. Like cheesecake burlesque is a bit more like tongue in cheek, a bit like you know.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
I'm with you.
So it was more like that. But I mean, either way. So I used to dance in kind of like quite revealing outfits, like, and it was sort of like 1940s themed as well. So like there was some outfits that were like little sort of vintage high-waisted bikinis, that sort of thing. And so obviously we used to get comments, and if we ever had to go out into the audience or do anything like that, I would get my bum pinched and stuff like that. And I used to think, this is like back when I was about like 20, 21. And I used to think to myself like, oh, well, I mean, kind of asking, I mean, I am wearing this, you know what I mean? So fair play. And the older I've got, I'm like, what a ridiculous mindset. Like, oh, well, I'm wearing this, so how could a man have possibly kept his hands to himself? He's just a man after all, It's so bizarre, but like we sort of allow that behavior. Like, I'm not allowed to just wear what I want to wear and not have my bum pinched, which is a bit weird. But even outside of that, even outside of like dance and wearing those outfits and things like that, it really doesn't even matter, because there are men that do this either way. Like, I think about what I wear a lot. I remember going to an audition once in the centre of Birmingham, and it was like height of summer heat wave, and all I wanted to wear was shorts. Like, I really just wanted to wear shorts and a t-shirt, but I was like, there's no way I'm going into the centre of Birmingham wearing shorts. That's just not going to happen. So I put on some like culottes, that's how you say it. So like 3/4 length trousers, and went into Birmingham, and still got constantly hassled. I was like quite early, and I just sort of sat on a bench, and I had like men come and sit next to me, and like people making comments, even just looking like I'm not saying like don't look at me, but it's the way that they do it, and it's so difficult to explain, because it just sounds like you're making something out of nothing when you retell the story. But if you'd been sat there with me, it's just so uncomfortable. I was like, oh my God, can it just be like whatever time so I can just go into my audition and go home? This is awful. So yeah, it kind of doesn't matter what you wear. It's not even an excuse. They'll do it either way if that's the way that they are.
Yeah. And one thing that we were speaking about before, Laura, and if you don't mind sharing that as well, is when you were saying about driving home and you'd gotten lost and you were asking for directions. Can you tell us about that experience as well?
Yeah, so this was back when I was dancing, and I was like 17, however old you are when you've just passed your driving test, 17 or 18. So I'd not long passed my driving test. I'd gone into the centre of town to the Hippodrome, our main theatre in Birmingham. And I was like teaching a class at the Hippodrome. And on my way out, I was obviously on the wrong side of the A road. So I ended up going the opposite way out of Birmingham to the way that I needed to go home. I ended up in a different area, and because I had not been driving long and I was so young at the time, I got in a complete like flap about it. It was like, oh, I'm lost. I'm never going to be home ever again. It's just so dramatic. And went to a petrol station, and went up to the night window, and I was like, I don't know if you can help me. I need to get back to the Hippodrome. I'm lost. I'm frightened. And a guy overheard who was getting his petrol, and he was like, oh, I'm going back through Birmingham. Do you want to jump in your car? I'll jump in mine. Just follow me to Birmingham. And obviously when we get to the Hippodrome, we can go our separate ways. You'll know where you are then. I was like, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Got in my car. And the minute I sat in my car, I was like, what on earth have I just done? I'm just going to now blindly follow a man. And he's got like, I know I'm in my car and he's in his, but he could lead me anywhere. And I'm not confident enough of a driver to just, So I called my friend, put her on loudspeaker, and I was like, right, this is the situation. It's probably fine, but just stay on the phone to me because it just seems a bit weird. Anyway, we got as far as the Hippodrome, and he pulled over on like the main road, and I pulled over next to him. And then he came and stood next to my car. So obviously I couldn't pull out then because his car's right in front of mine. He stood next to my window. And I rolled my window down, and I was just like, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. I know where I am now. I'm facing the right direction. And he was like, oh yeah, no worries. So can I have your number? I was like, no, I'm not interested. Thanks. So this guy was a lot older than me as well. I was like, no, I'm not interested. Thank you. Oh, go on, give me your number. Go on. And just wouldn't let it go. Honestly, I don't know how long I was there. It probably felt like a lot longer than it actually was in reality. But I was like, I can't get out of this situation. Like, I'd locked my door and my window's only down a crack because I thought he could lean in and grab my keys or anything. And I was so scared. In the end, he must have just given up on it. And I can't remember how it ended in the end, but he must have just given up in the end. And I said to Dan as well, when I was telling you the story before, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'd have ended up telling him I had a boyfriend. I don't actually think I had a boyfriend at the time. But I always find that a like really weird concept that as soon as I say I have a boyfriend, that's like, oh, okay then. Like, but he didn't have enough respect for me to just be okay, for me to just go, I'm not interested. Oh, okay, no worries. But as soon as I say, it's like saying, oh, I belong to another man. Oh, well, in that case, do you know, if I'm the property of someone else, like, it's so weird. Just have enough respect to take no for an answer.
Yeah, and do you know what? I said this when we were chatting live before, but seeing it, and for me, I've worked in hospitality for so long, so I see, you know, all drunk dickheads, both genders, drunk dickheads that will be a bit all over the place, and you're like, for God's sake. But it's there was one particular when I was working in a pub, and there was two guys, and they'd come in, they'd had a few to drink, and there were two girls. Two girls were having a whale of a time. They were just catching up. It'd been a long while. It was in the middle of it was just when the pubs were reopening, and these two guys were just so leery that I was just kind of like, I went over to the girls and I was like, are you all right? Like, is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. Anyway, so these two guys then joined these two girls, and I was like, right, okay, we need to keep an eye on this. So obviously I'm in the garden at the time, so I'm keeping an eye on everything that's going on. And these two guys just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And these girls were like, no, like, we're not interested, blah, blah. But these guys were like trying to pile them with drinks and to go through that and to just see where it was going to take them. So in the end, the two guys went off for a cigarette and they were chatting about, you know, at the time, who was going to take who home and all that lot. The girls were like, no, like, absolutely not. Like, that's not going to happen. So I checked in with them again and I was like, look, is everything okay? Because these seem like they're a lot. And they were like, yeah, we're absolutely fine. But if it gets a lot, then we'll tell you. And I was like, okay, because we can chuck them out or whatever. And that's the bit that frustrates me the most when it comes to things like that. And I know that when we spoke, Laura, it was a lot about, you know, pubs and bars and cultures like that. But I think that when it comes down to the pushiness of it, no means no with it. Like, there's been situations where, for example, I've been out and I've chatted to a couple of people. You've tried it, it doesn't work, but you ended up then chatting for the rest of the night and you make friends. That's how you can make new friends of it. And I've seen that so much in different pub settings, in different other settings, and you can just have a laugh with people. Even if it's a no, you can just still be a nice person about it. And that's the bit that frustrates me, where it's just the constant badgering and just keep knocking on the door to say, come on, mate. And then it just makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's it. I think some people, like, it really really bruises their ego rather than just be like, all right, no worries.
Yeah.
and just moving on.
There's another thing, like, it's not just no. Like, sometimes you're not even in that position where you can say no.
Yeah.
I think it's knowing, like, are those people that you're going to go and speak to, are those girls absolutely off their heads? Like, are they okay? Like, whatever they're saying to me, is this really like the right thing to be doing or saying to them? Or, like, it shouldn't be like, hey, can I have your number? And you say no, and it's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's like knowing that those people are in the right state.
Yeah.
Big advantage.
No, I completely agree. Em, coming to you then, if you don't mind. So tell us about your experiences, because I know that you put a post out recently, which really hit me, because obviously knowing you as one of my mates from back home. Tell us about your experience.
I've got loads, got tons, like way more than you would have. Like, all of us have hundreds, and you don't realize how many you have until you kind of sit back and something big happens. So I know after writing this post that I've had so many people message me, and I can't believe how many times this has happened to people. Like, if only I'd known when it had happened. So basically, my job is it's in the advertising world. I've been in it for ages. I know the deal. I think I'm like strong, independent woman. Love to go out partying. So you want to be best friends with everyone, basically. You want to show everyone a good time. It's like being a holiday rep, but in the real world. So you're talking like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're taking people for lunch, you're taking people for dinner, you're going for coffees, you're going to do this, you're going to go in and you're going to go and do a big pitch to advertising agencies. So you have to be like confident and just like live your life basically to the full. And you've also got to be that fun person that people call on and are like, okay, like, oh, we've got a bit of downtime. Who do we want to be spending this downtime with? I don't know, take people to art galleries, blah, blah, blah. So I'd been doing that for 4 or 5 years. And I started working at this big film production company that I'm at now. There's a big award show every year. So you have like the Cannes Film Festival. And then after all the celebs go home, it's the advertising one. So everyone from America, just literally everyone goes to Cannes, and each like production company puts on a massive house party, a villa, everything's free. They got DJs. It is insane. And you're like, what is this? Like this, how does this work?
This sounds great.
You're like, how is this work? I can't believe it. And like I've had family that have been in advertising, and I used to see them go off to Cannes every year and think, like, you're on the back of like private jets, like you're just like living the dream, and you go and have like amazing lunches, and there's like people that walk around with like rosé bottles that are this big. Anyway, so it's like all of that. You have the big parties, and you go out there, and you're basically there to meet as many people as you can and create these amazing memories with people, so that you're like, do you remember that time in Cannes? Like, I had, in my old job, I hadn't actually been sent because my boss at the time was like, you have to be a bit careful out there. It's a bit mad. It's like all of these like married advertising men are out there, and they're just like, this is gonna be the one. Like, there's people just having affairs, like wasted, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, anyone comes near me, I'll punch them in the face. Like, don't worry. And I went one year, and I was like, this is all right. This is good. And then I went 2 years ago. Spent the whole time doing the parties, lovely time. On the last day I was there, I was like, right, I'm going all in. So I woke up 12 o'clock in the afternoon, as you do, went straight to a party. Everyone was drinking rosé. We had the beats going, knew everyone. It's like, it's mad. You're like, oh, I know that person by the pool, I know this person. You're like going around. And then I hadn't planned dinner for the evening. Normally you have to like plan all your dinners in advance because you're taking people out and stuff like that. And I was absolutely wasted. And I was like, I literally couldn't get into any restaurant to go for dinner. So I just went home, carried on with my partying, and then went and met some people for drinks. So I had been drinking from 12, probably before then, 12 o'clock when I woke up, rosé, and everyone was doing every drug under the sun, getting absolutely wasted, mental. Then I go to a party and meet everybody. I can't really remember. I'm meeting people that I'm having to be very professional with as well, and you're like, not okay. Carried on at about 6 in the morning. I meet my friend who I'm staying with in France. This is South France. And I try and get a cab on my phone, and my Uber isn't working. So we were like, okay, let's walk home. So we walked, I think. We walked. I've got a few selfies of us thinking we look the tits on the way back, like look horrific. And then my friend was like, shall we go to the beach? Because you have to walk along the beach. And I was like, this will be wicked. Like, this is one of those moments where you're like, do you remember that time where we went down to the beach and we went skinny dipping, and like, it's just like what people do in Cannes. Like, this will be wicked. Got down there, and there's like, you know, those rocks that go out into the water. It's like a pier, but it's not. It's just like, it like separates the beaches off. And there's these two boys sat on the rocks. And I'm thinking that is just a bit dodgy. Like, they're not like people that had gone out there in Cannes. Like, everyone's all dressed up when you go to these parties in Cannes, and that they had like crossbody bags, and I don't know, they just looked like I didn't feel comfortable with them being there, basically. my friend, who was also off her face, is like, let's get in the water. I've made her sound ethic. She's very not. She's very posh. And she got into the water, and I just was really aware that these people were there, so I didn't want to do it. And she was calling my name, and they were going, "Go on, Emily." So they'd got my name, and I was like, "Oh, this is like." She'd like left all her bags on the side, and I was like, "Oh." Put all my stuff on the side, went into the water. I don't really remember much else. I remember one point. It's a bit like a film, and I can't explain it. It's like snapshots that I remember, and I just remember both the boys getting into the water, and me thinking there's something really dodgy about the one that's not in the water near all our stuff. I was like, they're gonna nick our stuff. So I kind of clamber my way back in onto the bit. God knows how dangerous it was that I was swimming at that time. Also, like, couldn't even walk properly. Managed to get back out onto the beach. And I think looking back at it now, the other guy was kind of distracting my friend in the water. And this guy that was on the beach was like, can I have a kiss? Can I have a kiss? And I was like, no, like, leave me alone. I'm in a very happy relationship and had been for a while. And I was then texting my friend who was there, and I was like, if he comes down, he'll scare them off. He'll be able to, like, he's like this big macho guy, he'll scare them off. He wasn't answering his phone. So I was sending selfies like this and sending pictures and going, I'm calling my boyfriend, he's going to come down here, he's there, like, and this guy would not stop, just would not stop. He was on it. And then I remember I was back in the water somehow, and I was raped by a local guy on the beach in front of my friends who didn't even realize it was happening. I think maybe at the time I might have even been trying to cover up the fact that it has happened, because I was just in such shock. Kind of came to that it's happened. This is in the water, and tried to push this person away, and he was dragging me under the water. I'm trying to climb back up onto the beach. I lose all my like rings and stuff, and then the guys go, and my friend's like, should we go home? And I was like, no, I've just had sex. She was like, what? It's like, I don't understand how, or like, but it just happened. And she's like, get your shoes on, come on, we're going. And I was like, I can't. Like, I was like, like, and she was like, this is weird. And then we walk up the beach, and there's these guys in this like banged out car just shouting at us out the window, like, we just had sex, laughing at you. And I'm like, I'm just really confused at the time. So then in my head, I'm like, what the fuck have I just done? What have I done? I mean, my mate's going, you haven't done anything. And I was like, yeah, like, that doesn't just happen. Like, I can't explain it. So then went home, and then I got in a taxi and went to go and get a flight home. Just before the flight, I sent my friend a text. I was like, I was raped, wasn't I? And which is weird. Like, I literally was going through my head, right? So I've done something wrong. This is me. I'm going to have to split up with my boyfriend. I'm going to have to tell him this is what's happened. I'm going to have to tell my family. I'm just going to have to get on with my life. And this is the thing. But I was just like sat there like, something is just not right. It's just not right. Like, it's not like I'd been like flirting with this person and like trying to find I didn't like pick this person out in a room in a party, and like, it was just fucking weird. And I sent my friend a text, and I was like, I was raped, wasn't I? And she was like, I think you need to talk to someone because you definitely weren't aware of what the hell was going on last night. So you were definitely assaulted or taken advantage of. And I was like, right. And the first person I told about it was my boyfriend. Just thinking that he's just going to be like, oh, you fucking slag. Like, why have you done that? And he was just like, okay, right, we need to talk to someone about this. So yeah, that happened to me, which was absolutely traumatic. I came back, I didn't think anything to it again, didn't want to talk to anyone about it. And my boyfriend was like, why don't you speak to your mum? I went down and told my mum, and we went to the police in London, in Essex. They couldn't do anything. So they then got some London police to come and see me. Then I had about a day's worth in forensics, which is bananas. If anyone has to go through that, you get questioned a lot by the police about exactly what's happened. They take samples, all of that. They ask you if you want to go and try and find the person that's done it. I can't even tell you what this person looks like. I can't tell you what their face looks like. So when I got back, had lots of conversations with the police. The conversation changed quite a lot because I couldn't really remember very much. And I felt like I didn't want anyone like making anything up, or like for some reason just internally blamed myself for absolutely everything. So I went through all of hours and hours of forensics, which is not a nice thing, and got put on a lot of medication. And then had to just do life. I told work straight away and just didn't. They told me not to come in, so everyone just thought I'd had a really heavy week in Cannes, and just decided not to come in, which was weird. And then I found that being at home on my own, even with my boyfriend there, you just overthink everything. And I guess for you guys, when you're doing like dancing jobs and stuff, you have a lot of time to think when you're on your own and you're not working and you're doing different hours to everyone else and stuff like that. But it's just taken the thing that happened to Sarah for me to, I didn't even realize that's why I wrote that thing on Instagram.
Yeah. And I'm speechless after it because, as I said, we've been mates a long time, and it's so hard to reach out and to talk about things like that. And the fact that you put it out there was so incredible. And raising awareness about your own story as well. And I think, like I said earlier, this is, I just hope that this is the moment that, we now as a society, we're able to stand up and just go, look, this is fucking wrong. This is not what should be happening. And, it's terrible. It's got to me, if I'm honest with you. When I saw your post about it all, it kind of was like, whoa. And I instantly messaged you. I was like, look, but it's just,
that's the thing. I just thought so I saw loads of people from home writing oh my God, I can't believe this has happened to Sarah, blah, blah, blah. And I think my first thing was do you know what, it's fucking happening to your mate. Yeah. You just don't know about it because I just make everything look like it's all rainbows and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually it's happening to someone, not just on the news, it's happening to someone you know. So that's what made me just go, oh, take it, you have it, look, it's real.
Yeah. And one thing that I wanted to ask you was, after the event, and now, like you said, a couple of years afterwards, how are you with everything?
God, that's the worst thing. I'm all right. I have had to go through a lot. I wasn't okay. I really wasn't. I was at a point where I didn't want to be here anymore. I thought that I was the devil. I internalized it. I thought it was all my fault. I went to a therapist who was awful and looked at me and was like, you were drinking? You did drugs? What? And it's like, that's not what I need. I went to another therapist who was amazing. I got put onto sertraline. I had to have lots of tests still. I caught gonorrhea from the person that raped me. So I had to go through that. Who knew that was a real thing? I don't even know how to spell it, by the way. Went through all of this mental stuff. And I feel like I am so much better now. And I am kind of thankful to the lockdown just to have a bit of time to just go.
And
how are you?
Oh, I'm okay. Sweating a little bit, but no, thank you so much, Em, for being so open and honest about that. And as I said, when I saw the post, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I know that we've known each other for such a long time, and you hear about these stories in the news, like Sarah's case, which we can't go too much into because it's an active case, but when it's someone that it just hits that much harder. And I think that what you were saying earlier about what's happened with Sarah, and something that I wanted to open up to you ladies about and social media has played such a big part in the awareness that we need to raise with everything. And one thing that really upset me a little while ago was that you saw the hashtag not all men.
Oh.
So
Kate's reaction.
Let's talk about this, because for me, I was like, look, we all know that it's not all men. We know that it's not. There's good people out there. There's a majority of people that are outstanding human beings, but there are always going to be a certain percentage. So, Kate, starting with you, because I loved your reaction.
That hashtag literally would instantly, I'd feel like that anger, like that, okay, good. I think for me, it's time that people started holding each other accountable. Like if a guy's with his mates, I think it's time that they started calling each other out, and also not being scared to call each other out. Because I feel like you see, yes, there is guys that when they're alone, they'll do things, but a lot of the time when guys are in packs is when they're like, it's just like that lad mentality, which is horrible to generalize, but I think you see it so much when you're walking by yourself. And then I think if guys could now feel like empowered to call each other out and be like no, let's just leave it, because at the end of the day, like, every guy has in their life a relationship with someone that they care about that's female, and they would expect that person to be able to go home safely and be respected. So why can't they feel that same respect towards another woman just walking down the street? I don't understand where the disconnect is there, where like you expect them to be okay, but if I'm there, then it's open season, And also I think it's also like our generation that's coming, the generation that's coming now, I think it's about really, first of all, teaching men or teaching boys how to behave and how to treat women, but also teaching women that, like, because I feel like we've all been ingrained to think like, oh, it's okay, oh, it's all right, oh, just make it work, oh, just do this, just do that. Whereas I think now, like, the generation coming up, it needs to be the opposite. It needs to be like, no, it's not, no,
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It is a case of needing to teach young boys, like, from an early age. And I just think there's so much wrong with the education system, and there's a lot of stuff. And it's not just within education as well. It's like just within like the family home and everything. Lots of little things that are said, and that I think like little boys are going to take that on. It's little things like little sayings that are just totally normal in our language that probably even a lot of women say, like throwing like a girl, or you run like a girl. It's little things like that. They're like the absolute thinnest end of the wedge, a little saying like that. But there are a lot of those little tiny, like, I don't know if you call them microaggressions maybe, that are like just ingrained in our language. And if everybody grows up around that, then yeah, we all think it's normal to catcall a woman, and it's okay. Yeah, it just feeds in, doesn't it? I mean, the not all men hashtag, way to make it all about yourself. I mean, it's not about, like, Jesus Christ, the point has gone straight over some people's heads with that one. Obviously, it's not all men. That would be absolutely ludicrous if women thought that it was all men. I'm marrying a man. Why would I marry a man if I thought that's absolutely ridiculous? Of course it's not. But it is all women that it affects. It affects, like, and it's, I said this on our Instagram live. If you think of it as like a wedge, like what happened to Sarah is the thick end of a wedge that we have all been on the thin end of. Like, if the thinnest end of that wedge is being catcalled, I'm pretty sure that every woman at one point in their life has been, catcalled or had something inappropriate said to them. And then it comes up, and there's, things like assault and, all the way to the worst case scenario, which obviously happened to Sarah. So, this is the thing, like, no, it's not all men, but every woman has been affected by something on that scale. And I would go as far as to say that, like, it is a lot of men. Like, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's quite a lot of men, because I said this to you before, when I've gone on nights out, like, I can't think of a night out that I've been on where I haven't been hassled in some form or another. So it's not like it's rare and women are dramatizing it and we're just, hysterical about it. It happens all the time. This is the point we're trying to make. Like, we're not making it up. It happens all the time. So that's that hashtag just, it really missed the point. And I understand that there's good and evil in every gender. I understand that men immediately get on the defense. I totally get that, because as an example, like, if we talk about it as a race issue instead of a gender issue, right? Obviously I'm white. So, when the stuff got brought up about, like, Black Lives Matter, my instant thought is like, but I'm not racist. Don't think, look, I'm not racist, because you instantly want to defend yourself, but you're like, do you know what? Me trying to defend that, and me trying to defend myself really isn't helping the issue. I'm better to just educate myself and try and sort of, like, speak openly about things, so that, other people who maybe would have had my instant reaction of, I'm not racist, then learn things as well. And that's why it's great that people like you, Dan, like guys like you, are having these conversations, because clearly people aren't listening to women. We've been saying it for a while, but unfortunately it is taking men to speak up about it, to maybe make other men go, oh right, okay, maybe there is an issue then.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting in what you said there, and something that I tackled back in series 1, was when George Floyd was murdered, and I approached Wade, who was a fantastic ex-professional footballer guest. When I spoke to him, I was saying, we'll talk about mental health in the game, but I want to talk to you about racism. And I think that when I, as a white guy going to a person of color to talk about racism, it was a similar feeling this time when I approached you ladies about how to talk about this subject, because for me, as I said, this is a big topic, but it's something that I've not experienced. So I have no idea about any of all of this. And I'm learning so much from you ladies now. But I think that you're right, Laura, it's the education piece. Because as soon as I heard about what happened with George Floyd, I instantly, all like podcasts, I was watching a lot of documentaries on Netflix, just educating myself and just going further. And I think that, like I said earlier, this is the point now that we can educate ourselves on how women can be treated, should be treated, and should not be treated, and this is where, and thank you for the kind words that you said there, but I think that you're right in certain senses. I think men do need to step up a hell of a lot more, and this is where now, hopefully, that we can push that. I mean, Em, what's your take on the hashtag?
Mine was pretty similar to Laura's, to be honest. Like, it did make me think of All Lives Matter hashtag. It's a defense. It's someone going, well, it's not fucking me. Like, you don't have to, actually, you need to absorb what someone's telling you, stop making it about yourself, and go, okay, this is a bigger thing than just me. This is everyone. Like, we need to educate everyone from a young age in everything. We need to, like, I honestly think, and I say this in every single conversation, that you should have a therapist from when you're at school. So, like, when you've got PE, you learn about sex education, you learn about maths. You should have someone that you can talk to, and all these things that you're learning when you're a young person, you can then decide and really sit down and think about what's right and what's wrong about the things that you're learning. Because you're learning things at home, like you're learning how like your parents treat each other or things like that. It's just like these things you need to be able to sit down with someone and go, is this right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually, I find like, I don't want to say like this COVID, because COVID obviously didn't happen for a reason, but I think people have learned in this past year so much. Like I've literally like, my eyes every time I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much more awake to everything now. And like, and because you haven't had all those outside distractions, you are literally just taking the time to educate, have these conversations with people. And it's actually kind of exciting, I guess, to know that the next generation coming up is going to be having these conversations already from a young age. And like, that just being able to process everything and actually not even have that kind of some of those old school mentalities drilled into your brain. Like they've got this new wave of thinking that is just would be so amazing to have from birth. You know?
No, absolutely. And what the follow-on question from that then is, and again we'll go around, Kate, Laura, sorry, we'll start with you. What can men do better?
Like don't rape women would be my first. Just the whole
great point there.
No, I mean obviously it's the thing is like it isn't all men, so it is difficult to then know what to do. But I think for me a lot of it is just like knowing that men understand, like knowing that men care, like just care and want to hear our stories and not going, oh, I'm sure it's not that bad, just batting it off because they haven't experienced it. And so it's really little things. Like I know that obviously Kate mentioned this earlier, like I think it was Kate, I can't remember who it was. Somebody mentioned this earlier about like calling out your mates. I think it was Kate. Calling out your mates. So like when one of your lad mates, shouts something to a girl, just be like, hey, what are you doing? Don't do that. It's weird. Like, and then it like trickles down from there. Like I had to meet some people this week. I had to meet 2 guys this week for a project that we're working on. And these are 2 people that I've never met before. I was going to be the only girl there. And the night before we were going to meet, I was getting a little bit like nervous about it. And I was like, what am I doing? I've never met these 2 people. I'm going to go and work on this project with them. Like we've had Zoom calls and stuff, but I'm like, but actually I am just going to meet 2 strange men. Like on paper, it's ridiculous. And if anything happened, can you imagine what the papers would say? It would be all my fault. It would be like, well, why did you go and meet 2 men that she didn't? That's how they turn the story, because that's what happens. And luckily, one of the guys actually texted me, because my mom was mithering as well. My mom was worrying, bless her little heart, saying like, are you sure if this is going to be okay? And I was like, I'll have my live location shared with you and everything, which I did. Did all the things that I'm meant to do. But I got a text from one of the guys saying, Laura, I've just had a thought, like, are you fully comfortable with tomorrow? Because obviously I know that like, it's 2 guys and 1 girl, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable at all. And I said, okay, I'm not going to lie. I have been like thinking about it, to be honest. And he video called me straight away. He was like, is there anything we can do to make you feel more comfortable? And like we had a really nice chat about it. And me and this guy have talked about this whole thing a lot. Anyway, I met with them and we had a conversation about all this, and obviously it was all fine. But we had a conversation about this, and he says, do you know what? I never would have given it a second thought before all this happened, before the whole Sarah thing and, everybody talking more about women's safety. He said, I never would have given it a second thought, but just suddenly occurred to me the night before that actually, like now I'm hearing that women do live in this sort of state of fear, that actually Laura might feel uncomfortable. And I said to him, like, just the fact that you thought to call me to put my mind at ease instantly made me feel more comfortable. So it's little things like that. Don't be afraid to say, like, don't be afraid to have those like open conversations. Anything you can do to make a woman feel more comfortable just by openly talking about it will definitely help. We understand that you can't fix the whole world and fix society, but it's just little things like that make a massive difference.
Yeah. Kate, what would you say?
You know what is that I too have seen little moments we've been like, oh wow, like for example, the other day I was walking home, it was like nighttime, I walked past this guy, he was very bizarre, he was holding this like tray of vegetables. It was very bizarre. Like you wouldn't be holding a tray of vegetables out the front of the park. Like it was just really strange. And I was just walking and he started yelling something and I was like, I don't know if that's to me, I don't know who that's to, but the guy in front of me turned around and he's like, do you want me to say something? Are you okay? Whereas I feel like previously that would have never have happened. Like I've literally seen people on the tube and like a guy has been like sitting really close to someone and you can tell the girl's uncomfortable and no one said anything. Whereas I feel like now people are just a lot more like in tune to it, you know, like they're making little things. And I think just doing that, just if you see something, call it out, say something. Like don't think, oh, I'm sure she's fine, because she's probably not, you know. Yeah. And I think that's amazing that he did that. That's really cool that he rang you and just literally took 5 minutes to think about someone else in the situation. And also just what you're doing is just incredible. Like if more guys did stuff like this, I think it would just it would just make it a lot more open.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And what about yourself?
Let me bullet point this.
It's a PowerPoint presentation.
I have actually been writing down when you've been talking about it, because I feel like this is such a big thing that it needs to kind of like, so what I've said, they need to listen. You do actually listen, no defense, like just listen. So listen when someone's telling you that something's happened to them and believe them. Hold people accountable, including yourself, including the press, including your friends, call people up for it and teach people. So the stuff that you've learned from listening and holding people accountable and yourself, and teaching others how it's supposed to be done. Like I know for a fact that I was talking to my boyfriend about this. He's like this really tall Icelandic guy, and he was like, I've noticed it's been so different when I go out and walk around. Like people like cross the street from me and stuff. And he was like, I didn't even realize that I might be like really scary because I'm like this big guy. So I think it's opening your eyes and just thinking a little bit more about everyday things. That's my bullet points.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate all of that as well. And like you said, it's a case of listening, and this is now where we learn and we move forward. So just to finish up, and again, we will go around in an order. What advice would you give to anyone that's experienced this? And we're talking predominantly around women and females at the moment. What advice would you, because obviously we've had what men can do, but what advice would you give to ladies who may have suffered or have had some instances, even now, that are some instances that are still going ahead? What advice would you give? Kate, let's go for you first.
The first thing I'd say is it's 100% not your fault, depending on whatever you were wearing, depending on what time it was, depending on your reason to leave the house. It wasn't your fault, and you should never question. It's very hard to say so, but you shouldn't ever question like, oh, maybe if I'd have worn this, that wouldn't have happened. Like I think that's the first thing that like I've had to come to terms with as well, because in the past I've thought that of myself and gone, oh, you know, if I just wore a longer dress, then probably would have been fine. But that's the first thing I'd say. And I think second of all is that it's really, really important to talk, like, because a lot of the time things happen and you just pass it off, and then it will like revisit you in a few years and you'll be like, yeah, exactly. You know, it'll revisit you and you'll just be like, oh, I really like didn't actually fully think about that situation. I just brushed it under the rug, went about my day. But now I'm like, that actually kind of scarred me a bit, if you know what I mean. That'd probably be my two things.
Yeah.
That for me.
Thank you.
Wrong. They were really good points.
And what would you say?
There's a few things. There wasn't your fault thing. Unreal. Like, educate yourself as a female as well, like knowing your worth, knowing what's right and what's wrong, so that you can call it out and you can teach people stuff, and that you know like what positions that you can get yourself into. And I don't know if anyone's watched I May Destroy You, but really powerful. I mean, just like be careful before you watch it. But I've had a lot of people message me saying, holy fuck, I didn't even realize that I was assaulted until I watched this. Like it's educating yourself to know that something was wrong. Something, yeah, that's a big thing in itself. To know that it's going to get better, like it already is. People are already talking about it. And if you're in a really, really hard place, I promise you it's worth just hanging on. It is worth it. It's going to be okay. And then, like you said, talk to someone. And if they're not the right person to talk to and they're not listening properly, talk to someone else. Just keep going.
Yeah. Thanks, Em. And then last but not least, Laura, what would you say? What advice would you give to anyone?
Honestly, like what the girls have already said is just literally, yeah, perfection. That's pretty much exactly what I'd have said. Yeah, so God, okay, I was gonna like recap and just like pile on these. Yeah, I should have been writing down. So firstly, I'll go in order. So from what Kate said, thinking that it's your fault because you wore a particular thing is the biggest load of rubbish that we've ever been taught. And it's not your fault that you think that way because it's the way that we've been taught. But rape has happened since, and this is something that I said on our live, this is something that a friend wrote on Facebook recently, and I was like, oh, rape has been happening since like, I don't know, whatever. I'm really bad at history. I don't know what date to tell you.
The start of time.
The dawn of time, when like women weren't even showing their ankles. So it really doesn't matter because there are just bad people who will do bad things, and it is not your fault. Again, yeah, like you said, educating yourself on because when you first said that, I was thinking, oh, educate. Okay, that's interesting. And then when you elaborated, I'm like, yes, of course, educating yourself on what is assault, and it's really easy sometimes to bat things off, but then actually, and I've had instances like it, obviously not to the extent that you've been through, Emily, but I've been through instances where it's taken me years of blaming myself in a situation to then realize that actually I wasn't in the wrong, like, and it's so mad. But as I say, it's because you've been taught these things. And also, yeah, finding the right person to talk to. It's so unfortunate that we have to prove ourselves in these situations. Like if I went to the police and said, I've just been mugged, I don't think that I'd have to prove myself. I'm pretty sure they'd just believe me, right? I mean, I don't know. I've never had to go to the police about being, oh, actually, yes, I have. What am I talking about? It's a lot of years ago. Anyway, I didn't have to prove myself. They literally believed me. I said, I've been mugged. And they said, okay, we'll take a statement. And then they looked for the person who mugged me. But if I went to the police and said I've been raped, I mean, fortunately, I've never had to do that. But you have to prove yourself. You have to prove you're not lying before anything else. Like, what is that all about?
Question yourself.
Yeah, and that's it. You then end up questioning yourself. Do you know how low the percentage is of false allegations? Like,
I'm not surprised. Going through it is insane. They were like, so how much had you had to drink? And I was like, about 50 bottles of rosé. Like,
and what?
yeah, but that again just made me go,
oh, maybe I did something.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah. And that it's just so wrong. And this is why people don't come forward. Like, it's such a low percentage of people that have ever falsely accused people of sexually assaulting them. And yet people instantly assume that it's a false accusation. It's really bizarre. So yeah, if you're talking to somebody and they're not giving you the support, talk to somebody else. But God, just make sure that you're talking to somebody is the best advice.
Yeah. Ladies, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking about such an important subject. And as I said, I'm taking a lot away from today. I'm not going to make bullet points because I've got the recordings. So I'm going to. But yeah, no, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And, you know, for your openness, your honesty. And like I said, this is where we make change. This is where we're able to open up conversations now. This is where change happens. And we need our voices to be louder than ever. So yeah, you're all amazing. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.